This is just too unfair. That wasn't the first thing said in the press conference room. But it was the only thing that mattered. Because when a home plate umpire stops a game, not for a foul, not for an injury, not for a disputed call, but to inspect a player who just hit a triple, something has already broken. And when that player is Shohei Ohtani, and those two umpires surround him on the base path for 15 full minutes while an entire stadium holds its breath, the question stops being about baseball rules. It starts being about something much harder to name. That night, something happened at the corner of sport and fairness that MLB could not simply let go. It had been a clean game up until that point. Not flashy. Not reckless. The kind of game where every pitch felt deliberate and every at-bat carried weight. The kind of game where you watch Ohtani step into the box and you already feel the stadium shift, a collective tightening, a held breath, as if the crowd itself knows that the next few seconds could go anywhere. The pitch came in. Ohtani didn't wait. He rarely does. The crack of the bat was immediate. The ball shot down the line, skipped into the corner, and by the time the outfielder had it, Ohtani was already rounding second. He slid into third standing. A triple. Clean, hard, unambiguous. And that should have been the moment the crowd exhaled. Instead, the game stopped. The home plate umpire moved first. He didn't call anything. He didn't raise his hand toward the dugout or signal to the scorekeeper. He walked, deliberately, purposefully, toward third base. The base umpire was already there. And within seconds, both of them were standing over Ohtani. Not beside him. Over him. What followed lasted 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a long time in baseball. It's long enough for both dugouts to empty onto the top steps. Long enough for the television broadcast to run out of things to say. Long enough for the murmur inside the stadium to rise from confusion to something sharper and more unsettled. They checked the bat first. Then the helmet. Then the batting gloves. At some point, one of the umpires crouched and examined Ohtani's spikes, the metal tips pressed into the dirt of third base, as if there was something hidden there. As if Shohei Ohtani had somehow hidden an advantage inside the soles of his shoes. He stood through all of it without expression. That part was notable. The man who had just laced a triple down the line, who had rounded the bases with that effortless, almost mechanical precision, he simply stood there. Arms slightly away from his sides. Patient in a way that looked more like endurance than composure. Nothing was found. Nothing was flagged. No announcement was made. The game resumed. But the 15 minutes didn't disappear. They sat there, in the air of the stadium, unresolved. The home plate umpire who had initiated the inspection had a name. And by the following morning, that name was attached to something much heavier than one unusual call. MLB announced it was reviewing all available footage from the game. Every angle. Every moment. Not just the inspection itself, but the lead up to it, how the umpire positioned himself during the at-bat, what he said to his partner, when exactly the decision was made to initiate the stoppage. And then came the part that made everything else fall into a different shape. The home plate umpire was suspended for 1 month. Not warned. Not reviewed for future games. Suspended. 1 month means MLB saw something in the footage they couldn't dismiss. 1 month means the inspection wasn't a procedural judgment call that happened to be wrong. It means the review found that what happened on that base path, those 15 minutes around Ohtani while an entire stadium watched, crossed a line that the league itself had drawn. What exactly that line was, MLB did not fully say in its statement. The language was careful. Measured. The kind of language institutions use when they want to signal severity without opening a door they can't control. But the length of the suspension said enough. In the Dodgers clubhouse afterward, the mood was not celebratory. It was the mood of a group of people who had watched something happen to one of their own and weren't entirely sure what to make of it. Dave Roberts met the media with the same steadiness he always carries into a room. But there was something underneath it that night. A careful choosing of words. A deliberate slowing of pace. A reporter asked him directly, "What did you think when the umpires approached Ohtani at third?" Roberts took a breath. He said he didn't know what to think in that moment. His first concern was for Shohei. Whether he was okay. Whether something had happened that he hadn't seen from the dugout. It took a few seconds before he understood that it was an inspection, not an injury. He paused there. When asked whether he thought the inspection was warranted, he shook his head slowly. Not as a denial. More like someone setting something down carefully. We trust the process. We trust the league to do what it did today, which was look at everything and make a decision. That decision has been made. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The suspension had already said everything that Roberts was too measured to say in a press room. What made the 15 minutes at third base so difficult to set aside was not just what happened. It was who it happened to. There is no player in baseball right now whose legitimacy is more examined, more scrutinized, more quietly questioned by opponents than Shohei Ohtani. Not because of anything he has done wrong, but because of how comprehensively he has dismantled the mental framework that most people in baseball had built around what was possible. When a player hits the way he hits and pitches the way he pitches, the mind reaches for an explanation. And when the explanation is simply, he is the best who has ever done it, something in the competitive brain resists. Not consciously. Not necessarily maliciously. But somewhere in the machinery of opposition, there is a search for the edge that explains it. The substance on the ball. The foreign material in the glove. The illegal modification to the bat. The spikes. And standing over a man who just hit a clean triple, examining him from shoes to helmet for 15 minutes in front of 50,000 people, is the physical enactment of that search. He was found clean. He is always found clean. But the search keeps happening. Among the players who saw the footage and heard the news of the suspension, the reactions varied. Some were measured. Some were sharp. Several declined to comment publicly. One veteran infielder, not from either team directly involved, put it simply when asked by a reporter outside a clubhouse later that week. He said, "When it's him, we ask questions. When it's anyone else, we don't ask the same questions." That's the part that's hard to explain with the rulebook. He didn't say Ohtani's name. He didn't have to. The room understood. The 15 minutes at third base will not be forgotten quickly. Not because of what the umpires found, they found nothing. But because of what the 15 minutes revealed about the way this sport looks at the one person inside it who has most thoroughly broken its sense of limits. Shohei Ohtani has won at this level as a hitter. He has won as a pitcher. He has won as a base runner, quiet, efficient, without the theatrics that would otherwise follow every step he takes on the diamond. And still the game circles back. Still the inspections come. Still the questions form in the mouths of opposing dugouts and press rooms and front offices. There is no rule that says a man cannot be extraordinary. There is no rule that says a triple has to be explained. But baseball, like most human institutions, is uncomfortable with things it cannot fully account for. And what MLB confirmed this week, with a 1-month suspension, is that the discomfort sometimes crosses into something the league itself has to correct. The umpire who initiated the inspection is gone for 30 days. Ohtani, who stood at third base for 15 minutes without losing his composure, still has his triple. Some things in this world are simply what they look like. And some things in this world, even when they're unfair, end the way they should.